Welcome to the Empowered Parent Podcast. I am Jess Arce, your host and the owner of 3D Learning Experts. Today we're talking about one of the most frequently asked questions. If you ever wondered why you should get your child tested for dyslexia or dysgraphia or even dyscalculia, joining me today, Melanie DeAeth, founder of Assessments Made Easy, an educational diagnostician with more than 30 years experience. She specializes in identifying dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia and helping families understand the assessment results. Melanie's passion for this work began with her own son who has dyslexia, and today she's helping families across the country navigate the assessment process with confidence. Melanie, welcome to the Empowered Parent Podcast. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Hi, Arce. Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay. So your journey into the educational diagnostic process began because of your son. Can you share the story and how it changed the direction of your career?
Yes. When my son was in first grade, I was teaching in the same school that he was in. I was an inclusion teacher. And we always had those kiddos that we just couldn't teach them how to read. We just really struggled. So I took a lot of classes and I went to a 2-week dyslexia course. And it was how to do the intervention and the assessment piece as well. We had to practice the assessment, so I practiced with my son. I brought his assessment in, and right away the instructor said, "Well, your son is dyslexic." And I thought, here I am, an educator teaching special education children, and I didn't know. So I made it my business to learn about that. I became a dyslexia therapist and academic language therapist and became my son's instructor. And from there, I continued my education, became a diagnostician to make assessment easier. Because when my son, after the intervention, he was reading, spelling, our dyslexic kids was always a challenge. But with accommodations, he did well in school and high school, and it was time to go to college. He wanted to go to college, so we had him evaluated at the end of high school. And the evaluator said, "Oh, no, you're not a candidate for college. We don't recommend that at all because of this evaluation." I looked at the evaluation and I knew it was dyslexia. That's exactly what we were looking at. But the way they laid it out, it just looked like someone who wouldn't do well in college. Anyway, so my son, they recommended that he become a horseshoer because we have horses. So he did. He became an excellent horseshoer, but decided later with some persistence and encouragement from me to go back to college and to give it a try. He graduated with a 3.7 with his bachelor's degree and became a ag mech teacher and taught ag mechanics. He did that for a little while, but then he thought, wow, this is really hard. And it is. And for some reason, he decided he wanted to be a pilot. So he went to pilot school. Didn't tell them he was dyslexic. That's a no-no. But now he flies. Yeah, actually, he's a medevac pilot now, though. He's an excellent pilot. So that's how I got here.
Wow, that's a great story. It's so inspiring that your son became a pilot. I'm curious about the no-no part.
They don't state, they don't like discriminate, but some of the pilots, as he was kind of going along, they were kind of like, you can't be dyslexic and be a pilot. Like he heard people saying things like that somehow. But I understand one thing, there's no accommodations, okay? So when you're going to be a pilot, there's no accommodations for that. So as long as he doesn't use the accommodations or use accommodations and he achieved his, degree or his certifications the same as everyone else, it shouldn't matter. But there was some bias from some of the people in school.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, because once you're flying the plane, you don't need to use your reading skills, but
Yep.
And if you're able to read well enough to pass, what's that?
Yeah, there are though. I mean, the thing he laughs about the things when he mixes things up. But you have to say like Alpha, Delta, Bravo, or we're going in, and he would. Those are not words we normally read, so he would read them incorrectly in the beginning. And the other, the pilot or the instructor he was with would just kind of chuckle and tell him how to really say it. So there are little things like that, but nothing affecting what he's doing. So he's a good pilot.
That's so interesting. So what is an educational diagnostician and how is it different from a psychologist?
This just a program that, or a certification that Texas developed, but I have the same background in assessment training and assessment instruction. That's really all my entire master's degree was assessment, giving assessments and writing reports and understanding the assessments and intelligence and brains. Same thing in a lot of ways. It's just the title.
I've always had the mindset of parents shouldn't waste their money on assessments because in California, most assessments cost between $2,500 and $7,500. And so I always encourage parents to just use that money towards us helping to resolve the issues rather than just having a piece of paper. What would you say to that?
In that instance, I'd say the same thing. The most important thing is the instruction. I agree. But the assessment is important too because it helps us understand how that child's brain works, where the deficits are, but also where the strengths are. A lot of times I love to share these evaluations with my assessee, whether that be a child or an adult, and show them their strengths and how intelligent they are, but that they just need to learn to read in a different way. And it just puts it in print and helps them to understand how they think. But I also don't charge that kind of money. I've developed a system so that I just assess for dyslexia. I'll do the reading and the intelligence parts. I'll do working memory, rapid automatized naming, so I can look for those deficits and make it just $600 for a dyslexia evaluation or $650 for a dysgraphia. And then when it's combined, it's not double because some of the assessments overlap, so maybe around 800 in that range. Yeah. A full evaluation with the math as well is about 1,200. So,
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. I use the same evaluations as the schools too.
Yeah, so I was going to ask that. So your evaluations can be used in the schools, or most schools will accept your evaluation.
Right. I use Woodcock Johnson 5, which is that one was designed to be administered not necessarily remotely, but on computer completely. And since it's been administered and the many other evaluations that have guidelines to be administered remotely, they've determined that there's little to no difference in the two administration processes, either remotely or in person. So this has been since COVID. This was a gift from COVID. So yeah. So it's the same evaluations that the schools use. So yep.
That's wonderful. So if a parent completes the evaluation and then they take it to the school and the school is difficult about accepting the evaluation, are you able to assist with that?
Yes, I'm happy to talk to the schools, attend the IEP meeting on Zoom, and I've done that, or even mediation. A lot of times the schools wouldn't test or didn't determine dyslexia, so they want me to do an outside evaluation that they then bring in during mediation, and I'll support my evaluation, and I will discuss in the other evaluations as well and help bring better understanding for that as well.
Now, why are evaluations often hard to understand?
I've been doing it for a long time, so it's not. I lay mine out to try to be like I'll have my reading skills, and then I'll have the spelling and orthographic processing, and then the fluency, just like that, and then I have the ability measures, which are maybe fluid reasoning and like vocabulary knowledge or picture vocabulary, and then I'll have working memory. I just lay it out so that I feel like it's easy to understand. I think a lot of times it just looks like a lot, and people, and maybe they're over testing. Though I'm sure those evaluations that cost that much money have a lot happening in them that isn't really needed to make these determinations. So
yeah, because usually evaluations take a couple of days. Like even the school ones, they'll take like 3 days to complete.
Right, mine are 2 hour and a half or 2 90-minute sessions for dyslexia evaluation. Yeah. So.
And what do you feel happens when learning disabilities go unidentified?
The schools in general are not providing the proper instruction. I find most common. So if you're not identified, the kiddo's struggling. Their self-esteem is going down. It catches up with them little by little. They're memorizing words and trying to figure it out, and struggling because of it. I think that the assessment makes people pay attention and realize what's going on, and makes them have to do the accommodations and the proper instruction.
And do you feel like it's ever too late to get an evaluation?
No, I test lots of adults. I test a lot of people that are going to go into college, or they're an adult, they've been out of school and they want to go back to college. They've struggled with reading. Sometimes they have a professor that tells them, "Why don't you go be tested because your fluency, or you're struggling, or you have test anxiety and that kind of thing." But no, I don't think it's ever too late. Sometimes I have people that I assess that are just curious because they always knew they struggled and they wondered why. And then sometimes they have work issues, deadline and timing things, or needing a quiet workspace and that kind of thing. And I can provide recommendations for those as well.
That's wonderful. And can you explain the difference between a 504 plan and an IEP plan?
Yeah, a 504 plan provides accommodations, which are just extended time, reading, using audiobooks, talk to text, those kinds of things. It doesn't change the curriculum at all. It's just to give you those accommodations, like having a crutch, right, or wearing glasses, actually. So it's just having a support so that you're leveling the playing field. It's federal. It has to be followed, but it doesn't always. They don't always follow it. An IEP can modify instruction. They can change curriculum, but it also gives the parents, and this is an important thing, when the school doesn't want to provide the proper instruction, it's written into the IEP plan so that they have to follow that. But I know you have a different story that it didn't happen, but it's supposed to happen that way. It's a lot of times that happens. It's a lot of times parents go to mediation and have an outside evaluation because they're changing the IEP and the parents don't agree. If you don't agree, don't sign it. Say, I don't agree. Ask to go to mediation. That's what they have to do. Ask for an outside evaluation. They should pay for it, but if they refuse, by the end of a mediation, the schools will have to pay for the evaluation, the outside evaluation, and the instruction that the parents have gotten for their student
And
or the child.
what if a parent disagrees with the school's evaluation? Should they
Get enough.
get an outside evaluation and then go
Yep.
to
Yep.
mediation?
That's your right. Federal. It's a federal right. Yes, you can ask for an IE. I want another evaluation. Yep. Yep. You have the right to do that. Do it.
All right.
Be the advocate.
Yes, we have to advocate for our children until they can advocate for themselves. That's one of the things I often say because that's very important to get our kids the leveled playing field.
It's a lot. Yes, exactly. It is. And I did that with my son every year. He had a 504 plan, so he had accommodations. But the most important thing is him understanding these are the things you're supposed to have. So every year I'd go in and talk to each teacher and show him his plan. And eventually he got used to it. And he was the one saying, I need to have this read to me, or I need extended time, and that's important because when you go to college, you have to be the one advocating for yourself. So, yeah.
Yeah.
We'd like to take a moment to thank our amazing sponsors who make this podcast possible. First up, we have 3D learning experts. If you or someone you love struggles with dyslexia, dyscalculia, or similar learning differences, 3D learning experts is here to help. They specialize in virtual tutoring for students of all ages, from first grade to adulthood. Their expert tutors use the proven Orton-Gillingham method for language arts, structured and sequential program for writing success, and a multisensory approach to math. This ensures students enhance their reading, writing, spelling, and math skills in a way that suits their needs. Empowering students with confidence and success. That's what 3D Learning Experts is all about. To learn more, visit 3dlearningexperts.com. And when it's time to unwind, why not escape to fabulous Las Vegas with Casa Arce Vacations? Whether you're planning a quick getaway or a family reunion, Casa Arce Vacations offers 4 unique stays at one convenient location. Just under 3 miles from the Strip, choose from a cozy tiny house, 2 stylish studios, or a spacious 4-bedroom, 2-bath unit. Each unit has its own private patio. Perfect for any occasion, they've got the ideal spot for your next adventure. Start planning your trip today at facebook.com/Casa RSA Vacations. Thank you to our sponsors for their support and for the incredible services they provide. Now, let's get back to today's episode.
And what are some accommodations that you find are very valuable for people with dyslexia?
The most important one is the spelling, not taking off for spelling. Let our kids write, even if it's talk to text. Yeah, that orthographic processing is the last thing to come together, if it ever does. It gets better, but it's always a challenge. And, it's because our language is challenging to spell. So, you know what I mean? So anyway,
Right.
That's the most important one. But audiobooks, access to audio so that they're not always reading, to exhaustion. And then extended time is huge. Yeah. Huge. because our kids have test anxiety.
Yes. Yeah, that's so true. And they have that anxiety because it's challenging for them, right? And
That's
what
right.
role should parents play throughout the evaluation process?
Um, just for me, you mean when I'm testing a
Yeah,
kid?
like is there anything that the parents need to do to prepare for their child's testing? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, a quiet workspace, just like if we were in school, it has to be quiet. Yeah, and that's it. Everything else is on the computer. I just do a share screen and the workbooks, the books come up on the screen and we just go through the process. Yeah, it's pretty
And
simple.
what if they're doing a dysgraphia evaluation? Do they need anything additional?
For dysgraphia, we need a document camera because I want to see how they're writing. How are they putting those words together? How are they making those letters? It isn't about handwriting. No, it's the process of from brain to hand. But sometimes remembering how to form a letter is different, or transposing letters, and of course, grammatical issues. So I want to see that happening. And that's required. That's part of the guidelines for remote administration. So they need a document cam, but I'll send them one to borrow and return to me if they don't have one.
Oh, that's amazing. And where are you located?
I'm in Texas.
Oh, you're
So
in
yeah.
Texas. Well, you're not originally
Hmm.
from Texas, are
No,
you?
I'm
No,
not.
you're from New
No,
York,
no.
right? Or Boston?
Yeah. No, not Boston,
New
New
York.
York State. Yeah,
Okay.
Western New York, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, you could tell. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't
you're right.
expect you to say you were in Texas. I was like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the good news, we moved here when my son was very young before he went to school. So we've been here for 30 years. But it's a good thing because Texas has progressed with their dyslexia and dyslexia identification and so on and so forth. So I had all the tools right here to learn and be able to do what I do. Yeah.
Well, and Texas is where my daughter was diagnosed. We were in Las Vegas and I was trying to figure out what was going on with her for years. And we were only in Texas 1 week and her teacher said, "Oh, she's dyslexic." And I'm like, "Oh, that makes sense. My mom was diagnosed with dyslexia." And we definitely found that Texas was much more accommodating with resources versus anywhere at the time. I think maybe Colorado was starting shortly after that. I mean, this was back in 2004, I think, when my daughter was diagnosed, somewhere around then. But yeah,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Texas is a little bit ahead on that as far as they've had the dyslexia handbook and the guidelines and all of those things since that time. Yeah.
yeah. I
And
mean, and my sister was a teacher in New York City, and when I started tutoring my kids and I was starting my business in 2012, she's like, "Dyslexia is not a real thing." I'm like, "Okay, tell that to my entire family." So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yep,
but
that's right. And that's the way it was thought. And when I started taking trainings, there was a doctor that I watched give a lecture, and he was talking about doing the MRIs. So in about early 2000, late 1990s, early 2000s, they were doing MRIs on people, and they could see where their brains were firing if they were eating or if they were reading or whatever they were doing. And reading was always in the left side. It was linguistic. But then he'd have these people come in and read, and this one man, and he said, and I thought my machine was breaking because he's reading and it's firing in the right. Well, come to find out he was dyslexic. So after that happened and it got consistent, that's when people started waking up and saying, this is a real thing. So we were
and
lucky.
the crazy thing is my mom was tested at Yale in the 40s, and they put plugs on her head. She remembers that she was like 8 years old. And that was in the 40s. So, they've had this knowledge for a very long time. It's just been very slow to get it to be
That's right.
mainstream.
Yes, that's right. Exactly right. Yep.
And
Unfortunately.
if you could tell teachers something about learning disabilities, what would you want them to understand?
So, I guess just about intelligence, that intelligence isn't one number. The IQ number, just like throw that away. Look at the different forms of intelligence. Is this kiddo able to figure things out and do puzzles and, have fluid reasoning? And, that's a form of intelligence too. Maybe they have a rapid naming deficit or working memory, but don't lump that together as an IQ. Our kids are all intelligent and they can all learn. So
Yeah,
I just throw that number away.
right. That's great because my daughter, when she was tested back in fourth grade, she only had an 80 IQ. And my mother, who was a teacher, was like, no, that is so not true, because it was the dyslexia that was lowering her IQ score, and it wasn't actually her intellectual abilities. Yeah.
Right. So
Right.
dyslexic kiddos oftentimes have, and it's a cognitive deficit, is rapid naming deficit. So that's just how you process, like how quickly you can pull information out of your brain. That has nothing to, it is a cognitive process, and it can be that, and working memory can be lumped in with the IQ score, but it brings it down. You just don't want to look at it. Those are just comorbid deficits, if that helps make sense. But
Yeah.
also vocabulary could be low, and that could pull an IQ score down as well, and that's part of dyslexia. Yep.
The parents listening today, if they can only remember one thing from this conversation, what would you want that to be?
That to trust your instincts, and trust your gut, pay attention. If you feel like your child's struggling and the school's saying, oh no, they're fine, but you keep seeing things, trust your instincts and advocate. Yep.
Yeah, that is really good information, because that was what I did for years. I knew my daughter, there was something going on since she was 2.5 years old, because I was a preschool teacher at the time, and she couldn't, as she was emerging into preschool age, she couldn't cut with scissors. She didn't draw stick figures. And so I spent the next 10 years trying to figure out what was going on. And teachers were really not helpful at all. And they just said, oh, hold her back, give her more time. None of those things helped, because her dyslexia was not being addressed. So that is great advice for parents to really listen to what's in their gut, because we know as parents.
That's right. The parents are generally correct. Yes.
Yeah. So where can listeners learn more about Assessments Made Easy and connect with you?
Yeah, I have a website, and you can do a free consultation. Just sign up for it and we can talk, and you can tell me your weaknesses and we can talk about evaluation and help explain things. And I also have a Facebook page, Assessments Made Easy.
Awesome. Thank you, Melanie, so much for sharing your expertise and your heart with us today. I know this conversation is going to help so many parents better understand their children and feel more confident to navigate through the assessment process. Your work reminds us that an evaluation isn't about labeling a child. It is understanding them so that they can receive the support they deserve and discover what's truly possible. Thank you for joining us on the Empowered Parent Podcast. And parents, if this resonated with you, like our page, and so you can hear more useful information.